You walk into your bank branch with a simple question about your account. The teller listens, then says she needs to check with someone else. That someone else says he needs to check with someone else too. You wait. You're not being difficult. You're just not big enough yet. Somewhere in that building, a spreadsheet already decided how much of your bank's attention you're worth. It isn't a mystery. It's a set of numbers, and most people cross them without ever being told. Here's the first one. $150,000. That's the average balance. Chase requires to enter its private client program, a tier where you stop dealing with whoever happens to be behind the counter and start dealing with one assigned banker who knows your name. The fees waive themselves. The wait times disappear. Your calls get answered faster. Nothing about you changed. Only your number did move higher, and something bigger opens up. $1 million in investable assets. Not your house, not your car, not your furniture. Just the money that can move. This is the exact line the financial industry itself uses. Capgemini's World Wealth Report, the research that has tracked global wealth since 1997, calls anyone who crosses it a high net worth individual. Below that line, you're a customer. Above it, you're a relationship. Banks like Wells Fargo open their private bank division right around here, and something quietly changes in how they see you. You stop being someone they serve. You start being someone they invest around. Keep climbing, and you hit $30 million. Capgemini has a separate name for this group too, ultra-high net worth. At this altitude, you're not assigned a banker, you're assigned a team, a lawyer for your estate, an accountant for your taxes, an advisor for your portfolio. Sometimes a person whose entire job is coordinating the other people. Goldman Sachs opens its private wealth management door around 10 million and keeps stacking specialists on top as you keep climbing past it. This isn't banking anymore. It's closer to owning a small, quiet financial institution built just for you. 3 numbers. 3 completely different versions of the same bank. And it isn't just Chase, or Wells Fargo, or Goldman Sachs drawing these lines alone. Citigold Private Client sets its own private banking door at roughly $1 million too. Almost the exact same spot Capgemini uses to define high net worth in the first place. The UBS Global Wealth Report, another major annual study of household wealth, tracks these same tiers across dozens of countries and finds the same pattern repeating everywhere from Zurich to Singapore. Different banks, different continents, the same invisible lines. So what actually causes the shift? The honest answer has nothing to do with merit, and everything to do with how a bank actually makes money off you. A checking account earns a bank almost nothing beyond a thin spread between what it pays you and what it lends your deposits out for elsewhere. But once you cross into private banking territory, the relationship changes shape entirely. Now the bank can charge what's called an AUM fee, short for assets under management, a small annual percentage taken directly from your portfolio just for the privilege of managing it. On $150,000, that fee is barely worth a banker's time. On $30 million, even a modest 1% AUM fee is $300,000 a year, arriving automatically every year, whether your money grows or shrinks. Suddenly you can see exactly why the smiles get warmer as the number gets bigger. It's tempting to assume the bank is rewarding you, that crossing these lines is a pat on the back for getting rich. But that's backwards. Banks don't treat you better because you succeeded. They treat you better because your money became useful to them in a new way. Below $150,000, your balance mostly sits in checking, earning the bank a thin spread and little else. Above it, your balance becomes something they can lend against, invest through their own funds, or attach fee-generating products to. A brokerage account, a trust, a line of credit, collateralized by your portfolio instead of your paycheck. You didn't become a better customer. You became a more profitable one. The extra attention isn't a gift. It's the cost of doing business with someone whose money is now worth managing. This is where the story usually gets it wrong. Picture a wealthy client, and most people imagine someone flashy. A corner office, an expensive watch, a certain confidence at the counter. But Thomas Stanley spent years researching actual millionaires for his book, The Millionaire Next Door. And what he found broke that image completely. Most people who quietly crossed the $1 million line weren't high earners with visible signs of wealth. They were teachers, small business owners, engineers, people who lived below their means for decades and let ordinary investments compound. Meanwhile, plenty of people with six-figure salaries and new cars sat well below that threshold because nearly everything they earned left their account within the month. So picture two people walking into the same branch on the same afternoon. One drives a newer car, dresses sharply, earns a large salary, and has $11,000 in savings. The other drives a car that's 12 years old, has worn the same watch since college, and has $1.2 million sitting quietly in a brokerage account built over 20 years. Can the teller tell them apart by looking? No. But the bank's internal system already can. One of them gets a generic hold line. The other gets a name, a direct number, and an invitation to a conversation the first person will never be offered. Now stretch that same scene 30 years further. The second person keeps investing quietly, keeps adding to that same account every year without changing much about how they live, and eventually crosses $30 million. The bank doesn't just assign them a banker anymore. It builds an entire structure around them. An estate lawyer who makes sure their children inherit with minimal tax friction, a tax accountant who plans a full year in advance instead of scrambling every April, an advisor who rebalances the portfolio before a downturn instead of reacting after one. None of that access was purchased with a single decision. It accumulated the same way the money did, quietly, year after year, while nobody at the bank was watching yet. And here's the twist most people never expect. The moment you cross into that better treatment, the bank's incentives don't automatically start working for you. A private banker isn't purely on your side. They're often compensated for moving your money into products that generate fees for the bank, not necessarily the ones that grow your wealth the fastest. The 2008 financial crisis exposed exactly this gap when some wealth management arms steered clients into complex, high-fee products that performed far worse than a plain, low-cost index fund would have. Better treatment doesn't automatically mean better advice. It means you've become valuable enough that someone is now paid to hold your attention. How many people ever actually get to test any of this? The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances shows the answer is fewer than you'd think. The median American household holds a net worth nowhere close to that first threshold, let alone the second or third. Most people will never sit across from a private banker in their life. Not because the door is locked, but because almost nobody builds the slow, compounding habits required to reach it. Which brings the story back to you, sitting in that same lobby, waiting for someone to check with someone else. The frustration you feel in that moment isn't really about slow service. It's a signal. A quiet, almost accidental way of learning exactly where you stand on a ladder you didn't know you were climbing. The bank isn't hiding anything. It's just not volunteering it. Because the whole system runs more smoothly when most customers never ask why the experience feels different, depending on the number behind their name. None of this requires a windfall, an inheritance, or a lucky break. The people who crossed these lines mostly did it the same unglamorous way, Stanley found decades ago. Spending less than they earned, investing consistently, and giving compounding enough time to work quietly in the background while they lived ordinary lives. The number in your account isn't just a score, it's a message the entire financial system is already reading about you, long before a single banker says a word. And that message updates constantly, even when you're not paying attention to it. Every automatic transfer into an index fund, every bonus you don't spend, every year you let a retirement account sit untouched instead of cashing it out, moves you a fraction closer to one of these three lines. You don't need to earn a dramatically bigger salary to cross the first one. You need consistency the bank itself can't see yet, sitting quietly in an account it hasn't started paying attention to. That's the part the lobby never tells you. By the time the bank notices, the hardest part of the climb is already behind you. So the next time you're sitting in that lobby, waiting for someone to check with someone else, remember what's actually happening. You're not being ignored. You're being measured. And the ladder is more climbable than it looks. No one at the bank is ever going to be the one who tells you that.